I'm Jamie McAnally, and I'm the founder and CEO of AutoEnhance.ai. We do AI photo editing. Our motto is that we make your real estate photos look like they were shot on the best day of summer. And I'm here with Andrea.
Coughtry. I am the owner and operator of Coughtry Enterprises, which is everything buying, selling, turnkey investing solutions, including property management.
And so, yeah, this first thing we're going to dive into is sharing our personal stories that got us to start our own business. So, from my side, I've always been a techie person, always been trying to automate things. Well, I've had a background in doing things like video editing and playing with color correction and stuff, and just the time it takes to make things look good is ridiculous. You can sit there and you can edit your photos and they look amazing, but you come back the next day and everything's green or everything's red. You've gone way too hard on the contrast, and it's just a pain. And when I was learning about the real estate media market, how every photo that's getting listed is being edited and there are armies of people editing these photos over and over, they're running into the same problem every day. They're pushing the levels to the limit, they're making the photos look way too saturated, and it's hard to get it consistent. And in a market like real estate where there's this, someone wants to sell their property, when they want to do it quickly, they want to get the photos quickly, they want to put it onto the property portals. Any part of that process that is slow is, it's just a multiplying effect where you need to streamline as much as possible. And that's where we came across this opportunity where we could use AI to streamline the whole process. What we were learning about AI, and I'm now 8 or 9 years in the AI field, is it doesn't run into those issues where it overcompensates the saturation or overcompensates the contrast or makes the sky too blue. It's learning the exact level that it needs to be, and it's getting it right every time. So it's all about perfectionism at scale, automated. That is what got us started, and we're like, let's do it. Let's try and build Auto Enhance. How hard can it be? Not as
Yeah.
easy as we thought.
Well, what I love about that too, though, is that like AI doesn't get tired. AI works nights and weekends. AI is quick. And that's what real estate has to be. Like this market will chew you up and spit you out in any market, not today's market. Real estate in general, as really any subset that you think about, real estate is one of those industries that will chew you up and spit you out because it's nights, it's weekends. You are really relying on when's the client available. And the funniest thing is always when people say to me, I really want to get in real estate so I have flexibility. Flexibility in real estate, good one. And I think you're probably seeing some of that,
Yeah,
even
but
from
that's
your
the
side.
classic. That is the classic. Anyone that thinks, oh yeah, when I'm in a job, I'm kind of working 9 to 5, and yeah, I've got no time to myself. I'll just start my own thing and do it myself. I'll have so much free time. But the reality is, instead of having one boss telling you what to do, you've got all these customers who are telling you what to do, and they can be at different time zones. They can be working on the weekend. So you just don't get any time off. That is
Yeah.
that's the life of starting a business for sure. But yeah, like what about you? How did you get into real estate? Was that something that you always wanted to go into, or did you just kind of fall upon it?
I really okay, I have to say this because once I realized this, I realized real estate has always been a part of who I am. So this is going to sound so funny and cliche. My grandmother is like 87 years old and still lives on her trailer court that she owns and manages. And she will not leave there. She loves it so much. She loves the drama, the all of it. Like, literally keeps her alive. And I never realized I did a podcast once, speaking of every agent having their own podcast. I did a podcast and he asked me how I got into real estate. And I always kind of merited it to my husband, Brendan, who you know very well. And I was just said, oh, I kind of had to help him clean up his mess. And that was how I thought I got into real estate. But looking back, I remember my mom and dad would take me to see my grandmother, and I would she always ran this trailer court and loved it so much. To this day, she will not move in with my aunt, and she needs care. But she's like, I'm not leaving my trailer court, honey. So,
So it was
like, I
always in your
think,
blood to get into this.
yeah, I did not know that. So when I was in grad school, obviously in school, you're trying a little bit of everything, accounting. And so my formal education is a master's in business administration. So I was doing everything, econ, accounting, entrepreneurship, all of it, right? So when I was in school, I was also a news anchor. I didn't love that. It was just so, you were every holiday, you were up at 5 a.m., you had to be so on, and I didn't love it. So I remember one time we're driving from Eastern Kentucky to Lexington, and I was just going with Brendan. We were just dating. And I was just going because we were going to have like a weekend in Lexington. So he's going to meet his accountant. All right. And he was on the phone with his property manager, and he was like, "Can you just estimate, just guess, how many roofs did we put on?" I'm like, "What?" And I knew nothing about real estate, but I knew a lot about business. So for me, I'm like, how is this even, how are you asking your property manager who you pay to guess how many roofs you put on? So I started realizing he had a big problem. And he kept asking me for help, and I really didn't want to get involved. And, it just kind of led to the point where I had to. And he was just like, please help, and dumped it all on me. I will look at this weekend, and that's all you get. Like, I'm going to give you a weekend, and that's it. And I quickly realized there was a lot of fraudulent activity, a lot, nothing being tracked. And he got his actual tax bill of what he owed. And I'm like, there is no reason that anyone should be paying these kind of taxes that is an active real estate investor and owner, especially with the type of expenses you have. So I realized that there's a need for someone who has, not just sales ability, but has the ability to be an entrepreneur, to have a business mindset and background, and to be in property management. It was nothing about buying and selling. It was, why are people allowing someone like this to run their businesses? And Brendan's brilliant, but he's not in business. He doesn't manage properties. He doesn't, he's in the medical field. So that was kind of my first, there's a need for someone who can honestly and accurately manage properties. We tried two different large scale property management companies in Atlanta, Georgia. I spent more time reviewing the books, making corrections, than being an out of state owner manager. So
Yeah.
I started helping him take over because out of pure inability to find someone who could accurately manage it. That was it. And that's how I got into it.
But how did you learn that, that you knew the right things for property management? Were you just Googling it or reading books? You don't just wake up one
Pretty
day
much.
knowing how to manage properties. Or
Well,
was it your
literally,
grandma?
no, she does not manage. She was like Brendan. She just wings it. She loves it. She I feel like just does it for the drama and energy. Okay. But so that's funny because nobody's ever asked me that actually. I'm not just saying that, but I think I figured it out through trial and error. And here's the thing, there's a lot of legality involved, there's a lot of rules and guidelines involved now managing for other people. But when you're managing for yourself, right? It's a little different. We were not an entity at that point. We were not, it was essentially, I had 22 rentals across Georgia, New York, and Kentucky. And which is extremely small scale compared to what I'm doing now. And it was out of such necessity. And the books were in, there were no books, there was nothing, right? So anything I did was better than what was happening currently. And I think, I loved Excel, still love a good Excel. Josie, my admin, hates Excel, but she's learning it. And because she knows I'm like, get an Excel spreadsheet. Like, but I have to stop myself because you can't accurately track as you grow. And I think that bled into the opportunity in real estate as well with the team, is creating systems that can be scalable, which you know all about. But that's really interesting because how does someone start? And it started out of, I was really blessed and lucky that they were our properties, right? So
You could take the
anything
risks.
happening was, and it was
Yeah.
total risk. I was collecting rent checks. I was trying to keep up with them on Excel. I had to send teams from Kentucky to Georgia to stay and work and flip. So we flipped, not in the traditional sense like flip and sell, but we flipped for lease and hold 10 properties in probably 2 years. And it was wild. It was crazy. It consumed all of my time and I loved it. I mean, I was getting calls at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, on a Sunday, and I would be in bed and answer the phone. It would be like, this was one of the best ones. It's like, hello, I think the neighbor is trying to poison my dog. They're baking poison cornbread and throwing it in the backyard for my dog to eat. And I'm like, ma'am, you do not have a pet agreement. You're not supposed to have a dog. So they were like, oh, like I was living the
He was
wildest
so on
life.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was so crazy and fun, and I realized, like, real estate will consume you, but if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, and I feel that way about real estate every day. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, like, last night, I was running late for date night because I was on the phone with a, buyer of a large commercial land. Like, it's just so energetic, and there's new every single day, and even though I know I'm walking into the office and I've got a million tasks, you don't know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
And I love it.
But yeah, and like when you're getting started as well, did you ever have that kind of fear
Yeah,
of
me
making
back.
mistakes? Or were you like this is something that I think as I'm getting older and speaking to more people in business, but also people that haven't gone into their
Okay,
own
first off,
businesses.
let's tell everybody how old you are because you're not old, like, at all. You're a baby.
I'm
You're
45 and going on to 46 this year. It's been a tough year.
he's like 22.
I'm 25 and in a month I'll be 26. So yeah, but yeah, I don't look 25, and that is probably the story of trying to start up businesses and making mistakes. It definitely ages you.
Yeah.
So
And you started your first company you founded when you were like 13.
yeah, I mean this is all going back to like the video editing, right? So I was so interested in video editing and making apps. And back then, like if you wanted to make apps for an iPhone, you had to have a Mac. And to buy a Mac costs so much money. I was 13, 14 years old. Like I had no money. I just had some pocket money from, you know, over the years. And a few of my friends had built their own PCs. And I was like, yeah, I was a mega nerd. So how hard can it be? There's always my kind of mentality towards these things is, I'll watch a YouTube video and it looks quite straightforward and I'll order all these things and maybe it will work, maybe it won't. We'll find out. So I built this PC and tried putting the Mac software on it, and it worked. I built this really high end Mac for a fraction of the price, and I'm now able to edit videos on it. I'm able to make apps on it, and from there it was people going, "Wow, that's really cool. Can you make me one?" And that's how I kind of got into building a business essentially. So it just came out of something that I wanted that other people wanted, and can I turn that into a business? And then from there, I was like, well, how do you sell more of these computers? Have a website. How hard can it be to build a website? So I'm then on YouTube again, trying to learn how to build these websites and getting into coding. And I built this amazing website where you could customize the PC and everything. And again, I was still like 14 years old. And I thought I'd be selling loads of these PCs. But actually, what happened was people going, hey, you can build websites. Can you build me a website? And then that turned into my kind of 14, 15, 16-year-old life was building these websites for people when I was meant to be learning to school, which I hated doing, and making some good money from it as well. I was, at one point I was waiting at a restaurant, and for like a whole month's wage is what I made on a website, building a website in 4 hours. And I was like, why am I spending all this time working as a waiter when clearly I should just be doubling down and building websites and mobile apps for people? Clearly, more of a talent to go down that route. It's harder to do. So you can make more money from it. And that's where I kind of went. But I was always taking risks. When I was building websites, I'd be talking to customers and they're like, yeah, I want to have this kind of shop area where you can like customize the different colors and you can do all the sliders. Can you do that? And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. How hard can it be? I'll give it a go. I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know how I could do it, but I knew that if I jumped onto YouTube and onto Google, I could work out how to build what they wanted. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, I delivered. But like I was always up for taking risks, and it was even at school I would repair people's phones and stuff like that. I remember one time a friend of mine had broken their phone screen, and I said, yeah, don't worry, I can fix it. And I brought this phone home. I took apart their phone, and then I was like, okay, I don't know how to fix this. I need to look online again to try and find all the parts I need to put the phone back together. And it worked. So it's always kind of worked in my favor to take all these risks. I don't think there's many risks I've taken that haven't paid off. Maybe there's been risks where I was like, yeah, I'm going to make loads of money from doing this. And in the end, I don't. But what I learned from taking those risks was so much more valuable. So I think that's probably been the most valuable thing so far in being an entrepreneur and starting businesses is just the willingness to take these risks. I know that it's not always going to work out, but if you're calculated about what you're doing, you're most likely going to benefit from it.
It's like failing forward. And I think that too, you're going to love me circling back to the same thing with me. I had no idea what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that a lot of life is that, right? You these holes, you find these needs, and it's not even your intended use. Like for me, it was to help Brendan out. He should have never been paying this kind of taxes. He should have had accurate books. And it was like, let me just patch these holes and continue doing what I'm doing.
Mm.
Well, I found this so exciting and so invigorating that I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I should get my license so
Yeah.
that I can buy and sell. And from doing that, I realized I loved working with residential buyers and I spent a couple years doing that, and the property management was just this kind of nagging byproduct. Well, we've spoken in depth that it's like now they're two kind of behemoths and they're both equally valuable assets in my life. Like being able to help buyers and sellers is a passion and it's so fun. But having that steady income of property management and investing fuels, we always talk in real estate about how there's so much seasonality and ebbs and flows in business. But if you're an investor, if you're a property manager, and you have that steady kind of set residual monthly income, it allows it to be exciting. I'm not married to the commission and the sale because I can give you my best service because I'm making money whether I sell you a house or not. I'm making money
Yeah.
whether you buy that commercial land or not. And I mean, that really is how you build a sustainable business at times, is not even focusing on your intended purpose, but if you can follow your passion and if you can take risks and you can, fail forward, you're going to look back and realize that sometimes the biggest things that have happened in your life weren't even what you were trying to do.
Yeah. 100%. But it's kind of interesting the way that you've built your business, the fact that you have the property management side and the buying and selling side of things, because when we're comparing the similarities between building a SaaS company like AutoEnhance and you're always thinking about your monthly recurring revenue, your annual recurring revenue, your churn rate, and that's so many similarities there to the property management side. That's what I found quite interesting, that you have that side to the business, and like whether other people view their companies like that. Are they just in the buying and selling, or are they dipping into the property management? Is it typical to see both of those combined like you have?
It's not. And actually, that's called like a turnkey service. And the funny thing is, think a lot of times you don't. I love doing these calls with you because you don't sometimes look at what you have until you're telling someone what you do just out of an organic manner. And for us, I mean, it's full turnkey. We can help you build portfolios, we can buy and sell, and then we manage them, we lease them, we do everything. We have full-time maintenance people, we turn units. None of this was intended, right? This was me failing forward in property management, investing, buying and selling. And I used to operate them until the last probably year to 2 years. They were two complete separate brain functions, which was wild. And anyone listening to this would think, why? That's stupid. But to me, it was like, hey, I'm an investor. Hey, I do property management. It's over here. This is this business. And I make my money buying and selling real estate. And they were not combined at all until probably about a year to 2 years. And I remember one call that we had where you're like, which one makes you more money? And that kind of hit me. It's like they feed each other because um, we make such good money on the investing and property management side that I never had to worry about paying my admin on my real estate team, right? I never
Yeah.
had to worry
Yeah.
about whether I sold the house or not, which made me a great agent. They call it commission breath, where agents they have to have that sale. That's how they feed their family. I don't. So I have this like extra level of ethical use me, don't use me, listen to my advice or don't. I'm going to be okay. So I can give you, and I never realized how intertwined the two were until recently, that they really are this whole package that I had clients in Hawaii that have been buying with me for 3, 4 years that I find the properties, help them build their portfolio. Then I obviously sell them the property. And then we do the renovation with my in-house team of contractors and, my source book. And then we lease it up and then we manage it. And it never occurred to me that we're a full turnkey service. So it's just crazy how, same thing with you. You wanted to build a computer for X use, but in that, you found yourself doing a whole subset of things that wasn't the initial use.
Yeah, it just kind of organically expands from there. You kind of learn how they cross over and what values each other. But obviously, you started off in the property management, then you got into the buying and selling.
Yep.
Were you keeping those independent at the start? Your property management,
100%,
yeah, yeah, because you were
which is
working.
crazy.
It was still your own business, right? When you started the buying and selling, or that was good.
Worked for a local brokerage. I don't have my
Yeah,
broker's license. I'm an agent, I'm a realtor, and I'm with Lifestyle now. At the time, I was with a local shop in Eastern Kentucky. So I was buying and selling to make money,
yeah,
to eat, shop, to live. And I never even occurred to me that this investing in property management, which seems crazy that they were the same thing or that they
mm.
were merged.
So that was always
And
on the side. That was kind of like
yeah,
your side hustle, building that up in the background, you and Brendan, and then the day being an
yeah.
agent. Yeah,
Yeah. I was like, this is my thing, this is our thing, and they're separate.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I even had clients who were saying to me, like, hey, will you property manage for me? And I was like, no, I only property manage for myself. And my client, she is amazing. You're going to have to meet her one day. Her name is Pam. She's in Hawaii, and she is like the craziest, most amazing, brilliant person. She owns a mortgage company. Her husband, John, owns a property management company and is a real estate agent. And he's like, why won't you property manage? I'm like, well, I only manage for myself. And she's like, how hard could it be? Just like you said, how hard could it be? I'm like, Pam, listen, I don't know about all this. And she's like, just give it a go. And that's so funny how sometimes just being open to something like your friend saying, fix my phone. Can you make this website? And I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this a try. Okay. We're going to give this a go. And it was so easy. I had been doing property management so long that folding her business in, nothing. But
yeah,
here's the thing that I think most people want to I'm going to get into property management. I'm going to take these 15 commercial buildings and I'm going to manage them. Well, you're not ready for that. And I think a lot of new agents struggle with that. They come on the team, they're brand new license, and I should have 10 escrows, I should have 10 deals. You're not ready for that. But everybody wants to be ready for more than they can handle. And I think your success, my success, and I think you would find most successful people, whether they realize it or not, were either born into it, grew up around it, or fell into it. And I think that's why it was so easy for me. I had been doing property management at that point for nearly a decade and didn't even realize how thorough my systems were, how in depth everything was. And it was the same thing when I built my real estate team because of my business background. I knew I'm struggling with these tasks. I'm up at night about these deals. I want every client to get the same experience, whether they're selling $1 million home or $100,000 home. I need a system.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with property management. I had a system in place so that when I folded her in, it was like, that was easy. And
Yeah.
then I
So you'd already
remember,
taken the time to work that out. Yeah.
yeah, for almost a decade. So it
Yeah.
was so easy. And she just keeps referring me to other folks in Hawaii. So it's been so easy to get that business.
Yeah.
Well, and and I think a lot of things are just being open to opportunity. So then, I saw this need for my husband where he's like, they lease all these spaces. I'm like, why don't you guys buy some of these spaces? And it's like, well, we would buy them, but how would we manage them? It's like, I don't know. And he's like, don't you property manage? I'm like, I don't property manage commercial. He's like, how hard can it be? So it's so funny that you're saying that. Then I'm like, I guess I could give it a go. And next thing you know, we're
Yeah.
buying commercial buildings. It's like, it's a lot of it's just being open to opportunity. I really think it's being
Yeah.
open to opportunity and not selling yourself short. And maybe that's all
Yeah.
life is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When you did that, were you kind of setting yourself up like this might not work out, but I'm going to benefit from it? Like I had things
Yes.
in the past, I've told you about when I moved to Singapore and tried to build business out there, and I built some startups in the past where, I was so focused on building a product because I thought it's something that people want, but it's not actually seen the opportunity and seen the problem out there and investing so much time into trying to build this business that I think is successful without listening to the customers and listening to, what they really want. And that's why those businesses didn't succeed. But luckily, I learned from going through that experience and failing with it. But when I was in the middle of those businesses, I was like, this is going to be the next big thing. All I could see was gold. All I could see is that this is going to work out. I never in the back of my mind thought, this isn't going to work out. So I'm
Yeah.
always like all in, this is going to work. And most of the time it doesn't. And I think that's something I've gradually learned over time to be a bit more prepared and set
Yeah.
myself up in a position where maybe this isn't going to take 6 months to be successful. Maybe it's going to take 2, 3 years and be ready for that and just, take that time and learn from it. But I'm in this space with other startups and I've been around other startups in London and friends that have built businesses as well. And it's so interesting to see them go through those experiences for the first time that I had gone through previously. And I think it's just having that relentless, I'm not going to give up. Even if it goes badly, I'm going to pick myself up. I'm going to try again. I'm going to try something new and learn from it and carry on to the next thing.
You would think I'm so positive, and I am positive, but I would say that, like, hearing you say that, I think you have that mindset, like, this is going to make it, this is the next big thing. Whereas honestly, I'm like, oh, yeah, you should buy commercial properties. Who would manage it? Like, I'm the one that's
More
like, no, no,
skeptical.
I'm not doing that. I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. We don't offer that. We're not doing that. And so I think that sometimes you have to just be open because
Yeah.
I think I have been, and I say this even to this day, I'm like, I don't do commercial real estate. People are like, you manage commercial, you own commercial, you just closed a commercial building for a client last month. I'm like, yeah, it's not my bread and butter. But it's like you are the opposite. You're like, oh yeah, I got it. And then whereas I'm because we are really opposite in that way, that I'm like, I'll say no. And Josie
Yeah.
will be like, we offer that. I'm like, no, not gonna happen.
So do you think it's the people around you that unlock those abilities? If you didn't have this team around you, not just like the people that work with you, like Josie, but like Brendan and the guys in Hawaii, they're the ones pushing
Yeah.
you to try these opportunities. Yeah.
100%. And I think that I've always, if you're the smartest person, the wealthiest person, the prettiest person in the room, you need to go to another room. And I believe that. I want to be, humbled, and I want to have humility. I, I've hired some new agents and they dress up every single day. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have to dress up a little more in the office because they're like, to the nines. And then I have, Brendan, who's this hurricane. My husband is a hurricane or a tornado or whatever you want to call him. He comes in, he makes a huge mess, and he's this big brainchild. He has no intentions of follow through, but he like wants to just sweep through the nation and like make all this wreckage. And I'm left here like sweeping it up. And that's so true because he was like, I'm going to be an investor. I'm going to buy the properties. I'm going to drop them here and somebody needs to do something with it. And that was me. And that, he's all in Bitcoin. He's so crazy about Bitcoin. And I'm like stressed about it. And I think that he pushes me so far out of my comfort zone. Do you know I almost failed finance in school because we had to do a project where we had fake money on the stock exchange and we were supposed to invest it, manipulate it, grow it, and it's fake money. This is a game, okay?
Yeah.
And my husband's like, "Oh, put it in here, do this, do that." And I'm like, "No." He's like, "You have to do something with it." And I'm like, "No." I couldn't pull the trigger to invest in anything, and I failed the whole project. I lost all my money. I
Wow.
did nothing with it. And the people in the class who took these big risks either lost it all or, 10x'd. And I just that's not me. I have no, and if you met me, you would never say this, that I have no, my risk tolerance is like zero. And his
Wow.
is like, he's like, there's no filter on that. Like, there's no lid on that pot. Like, he's just wide open. And I like, same thing with like Pam and John, who sometimes I give them so much credit in where I am today because like they're so risky. She calls me up at the middle of the night because they're 6 hours behind me in Hawaii. I'm feeling froggy. Let's buy some real estate. And I'm like, Pam, you are crazy. Let's do it. And just like seeing people like you just take the leap, take the risk. And I've just surrounded myself with amazing people like yourself. And I think that's why like just latched onto you so quick. I'm like, you're crazy. You're the risk taker. I love that. And it's just so fun. And I love our one-on-ones. You ask me questions that I don't ask myself. My real estate coach doesn't even ask me. You find holes in people's systems and their lives. And you're just like, do you make more money property managing and investing or selling real estate? And they're like, well, I sell real estate to do this, but this funnels this. I'm like, they're connected. And I never realized that before.
Joining the dots. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
it. Like seeing those patterns as well. Like that's a really hard thing for running a
Yeah.
business as well. Like working out what is working, what isn't working. When we were first talking, Auto Enhance was at a stage where we had so many different customers and we were like, we need to work out what is actually going to grow the business. So a lot of my time is just looking at these patterns and reevaluating them. And I've got great people around me as well. Like one of my long-term advisors and now chairman of Auto Enhance, Adrian, he is this guy. Like I used to always meet up with him and talk about businesses. Like when I was 16, trying to raise money from an angel
Crazy.
investor, and I was going through the pitch deck with him, and he always has these questions. He's so like unopinionated, but he will always view it from the other side, if that makes sense. He wants to give you an opposing view, and he's asking all these questions that really make you question: Are you doing the right thing? Are you thinking the right way about this problem? And I think that's always something that's in my mind is like really questioning what you should be doing. Are you spreading yourself too thinly? Are you focusing on the right things? And that's been a huge part of making a business work for sure. It's so easy to get distracted. There's so many shiny things out there. And like even when you're
Yeah.
starting a business, if you're someone who just comes up with ideas all the time, you're thinking, oh, maybe I could do that, maybe I could do this. But really you have to kind of get rid of those thoughts and just focus in on one thing and just get it done. That's probably one of the hardest things for me is just keeping focused and getting it done. And that's just what's taking time to understand.
Well, I'm in Kentucky, obviously. You're in London, England, but we are the, horse capital of the US. And so my thing I always say, and I said this to my agents yesterday, I just put my blinders on like they do the horses in the race, and I just run my own race. And, you know, that's brilliant. You have to do that. But sometimes when you have your blinders on and you're in your own race, you can't even see where you're at
Yeah.
in the field. And that's good and bad, right? But sometimes you just don't ask yourself the right questions. Sometimes you don't see what you can offer, what you can do. And I think having, you know, people around you who are just open to succeeding. And I feel like it needs to be someone not in the same industry, because people will say, like, well, what does real estate have in common with AI or tech or anything? And I almost think sometimes it's better that you don't have too much in common, because when you look at the overhead of business as just a industry, they're all the same. We're hiring, we're firing, we're growing, we're succeeding, we're
Yeah.
failing. I mean, the core principles of business are the same no matter what your industry is, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's building a business, and building a business hasn't changed in hundreds of years, right? So there's so
Yeah.
many lessons you can take from historical businesses and new businesses. Like, always like to read all these books about people that have built successful businesses. And I remember reading the Nike book, Shoe Dog, and this is one of the businesses. Like, sure, I'm 25, and growing up, all I've known about Nike, I thought it was like a prehistoric company growing up, right? But it's not that old when you read about it. And Phil Knight, his story is incredible, and the fact that
Yeah.
he takes all these risks, like every month he's in so much debt and he's got to sell all these shoes to pay off the debt. Like, he's taking all these risks to get the business going, and it's not a silver bullet. It's not like he takes one risk and within 3 months everything's resolved, he's got a successful business. This takes years of taking risks to get this working. And reading about like how passionate he is about growing the business from nothing to something, that is inspiring. And I think that's something that being great to have as a resource, not just books but the internet, and reading about all these people that have built their businesses, all the mistakes that they've made, all the risks that they've taken.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think until you
I
start
have to
making
say,
those.
I
Huh?
know you're a huge Elon Musk fan too. And was that not, I mean, that's so what was it that he sold initially? I know like he had some big super successful company, PayPal or something.
To rectify the point, I was an Elon Musk fan. I'm a bit unsure about him right now with his current
What?
state, but like back in the day, I was so inspired by this guy. I think he's gone a bit crazy more
Well, this
recently.
video will not succeed on X, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. He runs it all. You cannot say
Yeah,
Elon
Elon
Musk.
Musk. Yeah, Elon Musk's crazy story of building X.com, which is where
Yeah.
he was. Yeah, it's like a payments platform. I think even before that, he was building a platform where it was like Yelp, like that, and he
Mhm.
sold that. And it was him and
Was
his
it literally
brother.
Yelp?
Sorry,
Was it literally Yelp or like a
it was something like Yelp. Yeah, so I can't remember the name of it, and we're not doing live facts finding, so you just got to take my
yeah,
my facts.
you're not a trivia with me, by the
Yeah,
way, because
I'm terrible at trivia. Anything to do with tech questions, I'll be fine. But anything Apple, that's fine. But yeah, so him and his brother literally, they take this massive risk. They move over from South Africa, and to build this business, they've got very little money. They're sleeping on the floor of their office. They're going to the YMCA to shower to build this business, and it gets acquired. And he from having, I think his brother writes in his biography, he went from having $5,000 in his bank account to like 20 million and $5,000 in his bank account, like instant millionaires. And
that's
Elon
cool.
Musk was like, you know what I'm going to do with that money? I'm going to put it into their next business. So he puts all this money that he's into X.com, which became PayPal. So he merged with Peter Thiel and his guys, and they became the PayPal mafia. And then they sold that to, I believe it was eBay for billions. And then again, he puts like all of that money into SpaceX,
Tesla.
like
Wait, what about
SpaceX,
Tesla?
Tesla, Solar City. He reinvests all of the money,
Yeah.
not even thinking like
Flamethrowers.
maybe I should diversify a little bit. And we're talking like crazy amounts of money and all of this risk that is going to pay off. He's investing in himself that these businesses are going to work out. And again, it was like all these failed SpaceX tests until NASA invested $1 billion grant into SpaceX, and Tesla was about to go bankrupt at the same time at Christmas, and they
So
couldn't
he
pay
went
all the
from sleeping
employees.
on as a broke guy to sleeping on the floor as a billionaire guy. Because I've heard stories that he will sleep on the floor if they're doing production for like Tesla
Oh,
cars or like, SpaceX things. Like the guy to me is just crazy, so
yeah.
crazy, and I just love it.
He never had that, right? He always had a good upbringing. He came from a good family of money, so he never had to do that. It was kind of him seeking that to succeed, which I think it's partly that's a big part of like the startup culture as well. You're not paying yourself a proper salary. You've got to make it work, and it gives you this adrenaline, which it's awful, but also amazing. It pushes you to a level where you've never been before to get stuff done. And it's the same with Auto Enhance. Like we had this the first 18 months or so pre-revenue, we had this set amount of money that we put in to get this business started. And you know, I'd be working weekends. I'm trying to like push with everything that we've got to get this off the ground because once you start getting that revenue trickling in, you can grow the business from there. You can hire the right people, but it's that first bit of revenue getting to that point that is so hard.
I think that's so hard, but that's almost to me, and you might disagree, to me that's easier than the next hurdle. It's you and one agent and an admin. How do you grow? Like you just get stuck in like, all right, fine, you rip the band-aid off, you got some money, then you're just stuck. And most people never go anywhere from there. Because that to me is even scarier than the foundation. The foundation, you have nothing to lose. You're either going to make it or not. But once you have a little something, to me, that's the hardest part is do you risk your something to I don't know if you feel that way, but I think that's even a harder space to be in to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are milestones. There's this whole idea of 0 to 1, right? Like, how do you go from nothing to something? I think that is probably the biggest hurdle. It's like 1% of people that want to start their own business actually start the business. And out of that 1%, only 1% will keep going when things are going well. So you're talking like a percentage of a percentage. And I think for a lot of people going from having a nice, comfy job and working their hours and stuff to doing something where you've got to have your own back and you've got to, back yourself that this is going to work. That is an extraordinary hurdle. But then, yeah, from there's that subset of how do you grow this? Like, who do you put in your team? And it is harder and harder, but it does start to kind of plateau. You start to get this point where actually, okay, we know what we're doing. We're just going to double down on that and grow from there. But I don't know if it was like this for your business, but from us going from that 0 to 1, that was definitely the hardest part. But then growing it from there was relatively easy. But then it's like, how do we take it from there to go even bigger? And it's kind of it's harder. It's just a new way of looking at it. Like you've got the capital behind you. You can make some risks. You can money on things that might not work out. It's a different kind of difficulty level. But maybe in your business, because there's a lot of people that could get to that position where they might have another agent with them, you're really trying to work out your USP. Like we spoke about this when you were over in London. You know, anyone can go out there and get their license and become an agent. But what you're trying to build is the resources so you can have the right people that can work with your resources so you can scale your business. And it's
Yeah.
understanding those USPs for sure.
For me, not being a risk taker, which people will say, "Oh, yes, you are." Well, but it's almost to the point to where you push me off the ledge and I have to find a way to succeed and float or swim or whatever I need to do. I will not stay cozy on the cliff until I get shoved. And for
Yeah.
me, growing the team was not. I would have told you I do not want to manage people. I'm not a leader. I do not want to do that. And it got to the point to where between buying and selling, investing in property management, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I didn't want to let go of my momentum. I just had no time at all. And so I was like, I need someone to help me show properties, sell properties. I want to work with more buyers and sellers. I really wanted to help more people. And I wanted to help people get into real estate because so many people fail. They get their license, they think they have a job. You don't have a job unless you're closing deals. So I bring on um, my first agent. It was a horrible fail. She was a little older. She was a retired school teacher. We're friends to this day, but she just wasn't in the space to work as hard as I worked. I realized a lot of people don't want to work that hard. And so we left, we became friends. I still referred business to her, hired a young gunner who really wanted to take over the real estate world. And then, halfway through his first year, he realized he didn't want to work as hard as me either. And it's like, but they don't need to. And it took me a long time to realize that, but I had to have some support. I could no longer be on vacation and have a mental breakdown because I had 3 clients who needed to tour properties and I can't find anyone to do as good as me. I just needed someone to be half as good as I am or better than I am. And like, you really don't want your doctor drawing your blood. The nurses are better for that. You really maybe sometimes don't want me showing the property. I've got 6,000 things in my head. My buyer's agents, this is what they do. They're good at it. And it's like, I needed help so bad that I had no option other than to train someone to do what I did. And that's how it happened. And then I was like, this doesn't work. He has no motivation because I give him everything. I'm like, I need some competition. I want somebody hungry. And I tried when we met, I tried for almost 6, 7, 8 months. And I'm like, Jamie, I'm not going to be able to grow this team. I give up. Like, it's not going to work. And then it was all of a sudden we were in where we were shopping at Liberty's and I just signed on like 2 agents. It was crazy. It was like boom, boom, boom.
Felt
And
like it
then
was
every time I
doubling every
still,
day.
yeah. And I think that's some for you. There is no ledge for you. I think you are constantly floating and creating and taking risks. And for me, I'm on the cliff, like, don't, no. And then somebody's like pushing me, like, I need help, fill this seat. Like, so I think either way you do it, you're achieving the same things, but it's all about mindset too. Once you're floating or once you're creating, how do you actually do it? And I think, okay, I'm totally going to ask you this because I wanted to ask you this earlier. Do you think that entrepreneurs are born or do you think that they can be created? Because I don't think they can be created. I think that I've always had this ability to, when I'm shoved off the ledge, I will create something and I will do it well, in my opinion. But I think that you were always this way. And I don't think that you can create an entrepreneur. I don't think you can, personally.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's really hard. Hearing your reason for getting into business, it's really skewed my thought on how people start their business. Like I'm in this great space in WeWork. Like back in 2020, we had this great WeWork office full of startups. So many different entrepreneurs come from different backgrounds. And, some people, it sounds like they've always been into that. They've always been the ones, I don't know, running a lemonade stand or selling something at school or car boot sales. And then they've eventually got into business doing lots of different things from there. Or they've been in a position where they're working a job and they're so bored of their day-to-day life that they take this radical risk. They realize, well, maybe I have kids or anything, I don't need to provide for anyone. I can take this risk, and if it fails, I'll go back to work. And even like reading all these books as well and hearing about people's background, there's such a diverse, entrepreneur. I feel like there's no one definition of how they've gone into business or started their business. So I don't know. I think you have to be born with this ability to take risks for sure. I know a lot of people out there that are just too hesitant, but I wouldn't say you're born an entrepreneur as well. You
I
know,
would say that. I disagree totally because I remember being a kid and I was always like, we had this like building. I was like, if I just turned that building into a space where I could resell clothes for other people. I never did it because I don't want to take risks. But I always had that idea. Like I was like the one at school trying to like sell gum or like creating ideas to like make money or even if I didn't enact on them, it's always been happening in there. I don't think other I don't think some people think that way. I don't think some people or even if they have the idea, they let it go as quickly as it come. I could never achieve that, or I could never do that, or how would I do that? And they let it go.
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like you have to. There are, and I think it's a good thing. But I think there's people for every spot, right? You have to have the Elon Musk's, the Jeff Bezos, the Jamie McAnally's. How are we even friends for
very
so
good.
long? And I can't say your name. But and the thing is, like my agents on my team, I want them to want a place where I come in with these crazy ideas and they're like, oh, like, if my team was full of me, it would just be total, just butting
Yeah,
heads. I think not everybody wants to swim in the deep sea of unknown. I don't,
yeah.
I think,
I think that is a valid point. It's something that I've started to learn as well. Like I hire people thinking that they'll have that driven mentality, and it turns out not everyone has that. And it's kind of
yeah.
getting to understand that is how you progress in kind of building your business and finding the right people. And I'm sure we'll dive into that another time. So yeah, maybe it's something that I don't know. I still feel there's something that can be learned. Like I think, maybe you're born with it, but you don't unlock it until later. Maybe that is the case because there's a lot of people, like what's his name, Colonel Sandberg, the guy that started KFC. He didn't start that until he was
Colonel
like
Sanders.
Colonel Sanders. He didn't start that until he was like 50, right? So. Maybe you're born with it, but you don't know until later. I don't know, or maybe he had it the whole time. So
I think
it's
he had it the whole time.
a real mix.